guys, and welcome to or back to the Paws in Pursuit podcast with your host Summer Clark. So I've got a good one for you this week, and it's quite new to me as well. It's all about games. So for those of you who don't know and were like me and literally just did KC agility shows for years and years, games is part of sort of the UK agility, so UKA WAO side of things. KC does do it. I had only ever done KC shows, so I'd never done games before. I'd heard of it and watched it and thought it was extremely stressful, but I'd never done it. But I actually just did it at the WO tryouts, and I want to share my experience and what I've learned about the rules and how to sort of, well, I don't want to say hack, but sort of little hacks to, you know, being the most successful you can in it. And I'm not saying this worked for me because I didn't do brilliantly in games by any means, but I learnt what I would do next time to make sure I did better. Does that make sense? Like, now I have a feel for it and now I know the rules properly. Like, you can read through the rules. I was reading through the rules all last week, but you don't actually get that knowledge until you actually do it, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to go through my experience and then the rules and sort of how I think that you can do better at it. Excuse me. But let's start off as usual with my weekly recap. So just after I recorded last week's podcast episode, I went to Inspire. I was competing on the Saturday. Ari did really well. He had a win in agility and he also had a jumping run with the fastest time, but just a pole. Story of my life, lol. Anyway, but he was brilliant. And then the day after, I was judging at Inspire. And you've probably seen my social media posts about it. I'm glad I did it. It was a good day, but I did wake up at 4:30 a.m, which is fine, usual for a show weekend. But the last dog in my ring ran at 9:45 p.m, and I got home at half midnight on a Sunday night. So that was interesting. I was shattered, but no, glad I did it. Really good show to judge at as far as, you know, the dogs running there. Loads of good dogs to watch. You know, really exciting to judge. And obviously I had the finals, the 4, 5 and 6, 7 finals. So that was really fun to judge as well. That was what happened in the evening, but it was quite nice. It was quite different, you know, it was a different feel to it, being that late at night. I'm quite impressed I just managed to keep going because I'm one of those people that has more energy in the morning, get up early, and then I'm gone by like 3 p.m. and need another coffee. And it was nearly 10 p.m. when I was still judging. So that all worked out. Anyway, it was an experience, to say the least, won't forget it. So that happened. You know what's funny? Now I've resorted to getting my own Facebook page up for the weekly recap because my memory's that shocking that I literally just can't recite it. But no, I was really pleased with my courses. All my courses ran really well. Did have one woman, bearing in mind I'd safety checked all my courses right, obviously, because that's my top priority as a judge, and by 2 people, show organisers, and it was completely fine. I mean, I knew it was fine, but I was just like, double check this for me. You know, they have big dogs as well. So I thought, you know, I need a big dog perspective just to check this is safe. Because I've been working on sort of doing my courses so that they're for big dogs as well. Because my mindset goes to little dogs, medium, small, do you know what I mean? Medium really at the moment, not the big powerful dogs. So I've been working on that. Anyway, got them checked, all fine, all safe. Obviously when I judged it, literally perfect. The angles onto contacts, everything ran perfectly, safely, not even any close calls, really pleased. But as people were walking the course, one lady decided to tell her friend as I was walking straight past her, I hate this part of the course. And I thought, you could have just come up to me and told me that. I was walking past you. So yeah, that was interesting. You may have noticed the phone has changed position if you're watching the YouTube video. My phone just fell off the tripod. That was my judging day at Inspire. That was cool. And then, but yeah, I have to get my profile up because my memory's that bad. Oh, and Arrow's birthday. Arrow had his birthday, bless him, on the 17th of October. He's 4 now, which is crazy because he just doesn't seem it. Like, nothing about him except his birth certificate, as I put in my caption, says, I'm 4 years old. Bless him. But he had quite a slow start, didn't he? He's more like 2 mentally, I think. But no, 4 years of Arrow, such a good 4 years. Kind of traumatic at some points, but no, great. It's been so much fun. And here's to many more with him. So he had that. He had lots of treats. Paleo Ridge came the day after his on his birthday. Yeah, on his birthday. And they gave him some free treats. So that was cute. Some little lamb lungs for the boy. And then we had our last training session before WAO. Arrow has been foot perfect training lately, like proper foot perfect. So I'm really pleased with how he is getting on. And what else did we do? And then that's when the weekend came about and we had WO tryouts. So I'm so proud of Arrow. So biathlon agility, again, you probably saw this on socials, but he just had 5 for pulling off a tunnel. He crept his start line weight and I kind of panicked and I just went, and then I was behind and he pulled off a tunnel because I wasn't quite as far ahead as I wanted to be. And I was like, someone, for God's sake, next time I would just, as soon as I saw him creep, I'd reset him. I wasn't past the first jump yet. Don't know why, I just carried on. In the moment, anyway. It's a stressful environment, isn't it? But the rest, that was perfect seesaw. Both of his dog walks throughout the weekend were perfect. A-frame's perfect as usual. He did a really super hard weave entry, so biathlon agility was my favourite run of the weekend. I absolutely loved that run. It was one of those runs where it's like electric, do you know what I mean? And then biathlon jumping, he just had a pole and then pulled off another tunnel. But I was rushing ahead because I wanted to beat him to the upcoming weave entry. So in future, if I did that course again or anything similar, I would just hold the tunnel for longer until he'd fully committed before running off. So lesson learned. But yeah, again, it's a confidence thing, isn't it? He should be able to centre tunnels. He normally does. In fact, he normally loves tunnels. I normally can't pull him off tunnels very easily. So that was bizarre. He did do a really nice pull off the tunnel trap in the biathlon agility at the end as well. It did have a big scream from me, but it worked and he was a good boy. But anyway, so yeah, that was 10, so 5, and he pulled off that tunnel, but the rest again was perfect. And he ended up 5th overall in biathlon for his height, 400. He got his WO measure as well, which is exciting. He was, 407 centimetres, I believe. So nice and smack bang in the middle. I love his height, build, size, everything about him. Perfect. It's really nice not having a borderline dog. Not looking forward to the day I potentially have that, but we'll just enjoy it while I don't. And then we have the games to take us nicely into this week's podcast episode. Now, I would just like to take a minute to introduce you guys to the podcast sponsor, Huel. So here I have one of the ready to drink Huel meals, the berry flavour. Huel ready to drink is a meal in a bottle with over 20 grams of protein. It really is the perfect meal for when you're on the go. You don't need to sacrifice convenience or nutrition, you can have both with ready to drink. Each serving has 26 vitamins and minerals. This means every bottle of ready to drink has 175 health benefits. It is made from natural ingredients such as coconut, sunflower seeds, tapioca, pea protein, flax seeds and hemp seed protein. Every meal is vegan and it has no gluten, no palm oil, no GMO, no lactose and no animal products whatsoever. It comes in 8 delicious flavours including iced coffee caramel and strawberries and cream, as well as the classics like vanilla, chocolate and banana. It is absolutely delicious and just tastes like a milkshake. It is widely sold in supermarkets, petrol stations and corner shops around the UK, and it can be conveniently purchased online. I found out about Huel because I was looking for a product that would give me all the nutrients that I need while travelling to events and staying over at competitions and training events. So when it's time to refuel and have a meal, I can just drink a ready to drink Huel product and get all my nutrients quickly, easily and without cooking. It's perfect when I don't have the time or the facilities to cook. For example, when I'm camping at a competition, I'm going to be drinking at least one a day at KCI and Dogs in Need. If you're super busy just like me, then you really don't want to miss out. You can easily and conveniently shop ready to drink from Huel at the link uk.huel.com/paws. I hugely appreciate anyone and everyone that uses my link as it helps keep this podcast running, and every sale through that link helps keep my podcast going. Buying through my link also gets you a free t-shirt which will be auto applied at the checkout. If you subscribe to a Huel order, you can save 10%. You can choose how often your subscription comes, for example every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, etc. And these are super easy to manage on the website and you can edit whenever you like. uk.huel.com/paws. So, snooker for my right. Well, I should probably go through the rules before I actually, tell you what happened in my snooker run. So I'll go through the rules and regs and then go through my run. And then one more thing that happened this past week is Arrow's Platinum warrant came finally. 2 months, nearly 2 months after I applied for it, and had to chase it up and get them to send another one. So I don't know what happened to the first one. Someone random might have it, who knows? Someone might have Tough TFI Like an Eagle Agility Warrant Platinum certificate sat in their house for no reason. I feel like I'm talking quite quickly today, don't know why. But anyway, lots of energy. It is 8:35 a.m, that's why I have so much energy. I'm a morning person, aren't I? But yeah, so it's been a good week, and now let's get into the games section of the, course of the podcast episode. Right, so I'm going to just pull up so we're going to start with snooker. So I've got the rules for snooker up here, so I can definitely not make any mistakes, because like I said, I am still very new to it. But basically it's like the actual snooker game, if that makes sense, in real life. But you've got three or four red jumps on the course and lots of coloured obstacles. So what you have to do in your opening sequence, so this is 30 seconds long, I believe. Well, it was for me. It depends on the course time set by the judge as usual. But you have to do red jump followed by a section, followed by a red jump, followed by a section, followed by a red jump, followed by a section. And then you do the closing and you get a certain amount of time to go around the closing, and the closing earns you more points. So basically there's 4 different sections, I think, so coloured sections to do between the red jumps. For us there was 7, 5, 4 and 6. I don't know why I said that in the wrong order, but you know what I mean. So I made up a course and chose 7, 6 and 6. 7, 5 and 6, sorry. Obviously 7's worth more points, so I went for it. But so we completed that completely correctly, all fine. And then I think we were about just under 2 seconds off completing the closing in time. So in future, again, that was me thinking he was faster than he is maybe. But in future, I would have probably done 5, 6, 6 and then closing, because then I would have definitely been in time, and it's only 1 less point. Or, you know, it's not that big a difference between 6 and 7, if that makes sense. But for me, I was thinking, well, you know, people are going to try 7, so it's worth a shot, because again, I'd rather try to win than, you know I'm going to get round and come 6th or something. Do you get what I mean? So I did risk that, but in the future I probably wouldn't. Or again, depending on the course time, I would. Some people were running around with their stopwatches during course walking to see how long it took them to run around the closing. And then some people also measured out they used their dogs meters per second. So divided like an old time of their dogs with the course time or something. There's an equation for it. I can't remember which way around it is. I think it's course time divided by the dog's time, or vice. Yeah, I think it's that, and that gives you your dog's meters per second. Some people doing that and using that somehow with the new course time, I think, to see how long they had, and then also people were walking around, you know, like doing big strides and counting their big strides for meters, seeing how many meters their courses were, and using their dog's meters per second in that sense. So it's like a mathematical equation. So I'd probably do more like that in the course walking, but for this time, with it being my first time, I was just kind of wanting to get it like the course in my head, really. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously I had to make my own course up and then walk it and make sure I knew it properly well before the 8 minutes of walking was up. So that was my main focus this time. My main focus was to understand, like I said, they said they were looking for us to understand the rules. So that was my main focus, me, you know, being confident in the rules and confident in where I'm going, basically, which I think I did demonstrate. And like I said, in Arrow's snooker run, he was absolutely perfect. He didn't put a foot wrong, but we were about 2 seconds when the buzzer went off from finishing the closing. And when the buzzer goes off, you have to leave the ring immediately via the finish jump. So you have to go to the finish jump, take it in the right direction to end your time and collect your points, essentially. If you don't go over the finish jump, or if you go over the finish jump the wrong way, you don't get any points and you're eliminated, basically. But it doesn't matter if your dog takes obstacles on its way to the finish line. My biggest worry with this was if he had a fault during the opening sequence. If the dog has a fault in the closing sequence, the buzzer goes off and you just run to the finish, and then you just get your points, you know, from the opening. But if your dog gets a fault in the opening, that's where it's tricky. So say your dog faults one of the red jumps, you have to go straight to the next red jump and then keep playing the game. But then that messes up the course that you had in your head. You have to kind of think on the spot, if that makes sense. Luckily that didn't happen for me, but that would make it a lot harder. So someone gave me the advice to think of it in sections, like break it up. And if it confuses you less, if your dog faults the first red jump, just do the other 2 sections followed by your last section again, if that makes sense. But obviously you can only do each red jump once. You have to attempt 3 red jumps, but there's usually 4 on the course to give you that leeway, I suppose. And then if your dog gets a fault in one of the coloured sequences between your red jumps, you have to just again go straight to another red and carry on. You can finish it if you want, but it's just time wasting at this point. So that's kind of how it went and how it works just by me thinking about it, but I've got the actual rules up on here to sort of go over the briefing. So like I said, the course time is subjective to the actual course, and the time is listed from the start jump to the last obstacle in the closing sequence. So it's 2 to 7 is the sequence. So the finish jump is used just for a tie-breaking time in case of a tied overall score. But like I said, you have to go over it in the right direction to complete the game. And like I said, you can use your stopwatches in the course time, which is always helpful. But obviously not in the actual competition, goes without saying. But what's interesting, I think, is if a dog is engaged with an obstacle when the buzzer or horn, well, it was like a horrible buzzer noise. It was like a prison cell being opened. So if a dog is engaged with an obstacle when that goes off to end time, points will be awarded only if the obstacle has been completed. So for example, completing an obstacle is the point at which it is no longer possible for the dog to fault the obstacle. So landing a jump, for example, front feet on the ground after having touched the contact zone with at least 1 foot, front feet out of a tunnel, head past the last weave pole, stuff like that. So obviously for me, when the buzzer went off, I was halfway through the weaves. So it could have been possible for him to still get a fault at the end of the weaves. So that didn't count. Does that make sense? So yeah, this was just a jumping course for us, but obviously it can include agility equipment. So all dogs must take the start jump as the first obstacle, and it must be taken from the side indicated on the course map, same as the finish. So time starts when the dog crosses the start jump. It has no point value though, and it's not judged for drop bars either. So you can have a pole down and it won't be judged. It's live at all times during the run. So if the dog takes it again at any point during the run, then it's game over and it's judged as off course. Point accumulation ends and the handler should go directly to the finish jump as if it was faulted in anything else. So the finish jump is also live at all times. So if the finish jump is taken at any time during the run, time will be stopped and points accumulation will end. So that is it. So you want to keep your dog away from that. So obviously you must take the finish jump to end the run and keep the points in the correct direction, and failure to take the finish jump after the 7th obstacle is completed in the closing sequence, so the last obstacle in the closing sequence, or after the judge's whistle blows or the horn goes off or whatever. So if the dog doesn't take the finish jump after the last obstacle in the closing sequence, or after the judge's whistle blows for faulting an obstacle, or after the buzzer sounds to end time, this will result in no time being recorded and the loss of all accumulated points. So the finish jump is very important. And there is no penalty if a dog takes additional obstacles on the way to the finish jump. You have to just get there as soon as you can. So touching the dog on the way to the finish jump in a way that aids performance will result in a loss of all points, essentially an elimination, and incidental contact that does not aid the performance will not be faulted. So just beware. So opening sequence then. So the opening sequence is red number 1 successfully and any colour attempt following the first red jump, any colour attempt, which is a sequence of the same number, for example, 5A, 5B, 5C. And then a different red, and then another colour attempt, and then a different red and another colour attempt. So you can do the colours more than once, but they have to be separated by a different red jump, basically. And there are 4 red jumps on the course, and only 3 of them may be completed successfully. So you can use all 4 if you need to. If one of the previous ones is faulted, you have to attempt 3. Basically. So if the first red jump is faulted, the handler must move on to the next red jump to continue the game. If the 4th red jump is faulted, the handler must begin the closing sequence at number 2. So you must at least attempt to do 3 successfully, if that makes sense. And if it still doesn't work, you have to just start the closing. If they do not do this, then the run is over and they should go to the finish jump to stop the time. So if any one of the red jumps is faulted, the handler may choose to take the 4th red, followed by a colour, before proceeding to the closing. This is not compulsory though, and the handler can choose to go straight to the closing after the 3rd red and colour attempt if they wish. So it's up to you. Again, it's all a bit of a gamble, isn't it? So all obstacles may be taken in either direction in the opening, except the start and finish. And any exceptions to this will be noted on the course map. Again, any exceptions to the general rule is usually in the briefing on the day. Well, always. If a handler touches a dog or obstacle, whether intentional or accidental, in a manner that aids the dog's performance, you will get 0 points. I think we've already said that anyway, for that obstacle, and you should go to the next red if any unused reds are remaining. Otherwise, start the closing. So yeah, you don't get eliminated if you do that during the course, instead of on the way to the finish, but it means you get nothing for that basically, and you have to move on as you would if it was faulted. So no refusals are judged in the opening sequence, so the dog will get points as long as the obstacle is completed correctly. For example, if the dog misses the weave pole entry but then corrects it and finishes weaving all the poles, points will be awarded. You just waste time essentially. Or if the dog starts up the A-frame, jumps off the up ramp and then gets back on the obstacle and successfully completes the A-frame, points will be awarded. So the snooker definition of engaged is the dog gets onto an obstacle, goes into an obstacle, touches any part of the obstacle, runs under any part of an obstacle, or jumps over any parts of an obstacle. So it's common sense really, is the dog engage with an obstacle. So the snooker definition of a standard fault is stuff like a missed down contact, a pole, brick or long jump element knocked down, breakaway tyre opening, or missing a weave pole after entering correctly. So a dog is deemed to have started an obstacle once it engages with it, and once it engages with a coloured obstacle, they must continue with that obstacle to the point of completion or a standard fault. If they do not, this is game over and they should go straight to the finish. Refusing a coloured obstacle after engaging with it and then attempting a different coloured obstacle is game over. So combination obstacles. So if there's any combination obstacles on course, they may be taken in any order and or direction in the opening. So for example, 5A, 5B and 5C. You can take 5B, 5C, 5A if you want, and in any direction. So once a combination is started, subsequent obstacles in that combination must be attempted to the point of completion unless the dog incurs a standard fault on one of the obstacles. So if this occurs, the handler does not have to finish that combination and may leave the obstacle to continue to the next red jump or start the closing. But like I said, it's made quite obvious by the whistle. If there is a fault, no points will be awarded and time will be wasted if the dog finishes the combination. So you just don't have to. There's no point. And in the absence of a standard fault, if the dog leaves the combination before attempting all the elements, this is game over. If the dog returns to a previously completed obstacle in the combination, this is game over too. If the dog takes a non-combination obstacle during the combination, this is game over as well. And finally, if the dog takes the combination out of a designated order or direction, this is game over. So if the weaves are present on course, the following rules apply. If the dog misses the entry, it's a refusal, which is not faulted in the opening. The handler may restart the weaves from the same direction and still earn the points. Once the dog enters the weaves correctly, if he does miss a pole, it's a standard fault. So the judge will call fault or zero and the handler should continue on to the next red or start the closing. While the handler does not have to complete the weaves in the case of a fault, there is no penalty if he does finish the weaves. Again, like I said before, this is just time wasting really at this point. So now you move on to the closing sequence. So any faults or refusals in the closing will mean the game is over. The judge will blow the whistle and the handler should proceed directly to the finish jump upon hearing the whistle. So refusals are marked in the closing, along with normal standard faults as well. And obstacles 2 to 7 must be performed in the correct sequence and direction as marked on the course. So this is like following an actual course. Please note that the numbers on the course map are placed on the approach side of each obstacle to show direction in the closing sequence, whereas this isn't the case in the opening, is it? So think of the opening and closing as two separate entities with two separate rules. So combination obstacles must be taken in alphabetical order in the direction of the letters, as I said earlier, so that's super important. So please note that the letters on the map are placed on the approach side of each obstacle to show direction. Handlers should continue the course until they hear the judge's whistle or the buzzer or horn sounds to signal the end of time, as you just want to keep actively trying to get more points. So if an obstacle is faulted and the judge's whistle blows or the horn goes off, the game is over and the handler should go directly to the finish jump to stop time. There will be no penalty if a dog takes additional obstacles on the way to the finish jump. Handlers must end their run with the dog taking the finish jump from the correct side. Failure to take the finish jump is literally an elimination. I saw this happen to a few people, which was really sad. I would be gutted. This did nearly happen to me in the Gamblers, but luckily it didn't. We'll come on to that next. But yeah, so they're the rules of snooker. Again, they can change depending on the day. There's a briefing for each specific snookers round, if that makes sense. On the day. Like I said, for WAO, the briefing was posted on the Facebook page before it happened. But they're generally the rules that I've got there for WAO and how I ran it. But no, Arrow's run was perfect. Like, he did everything I told him. But like I said, I just overestimated how fast he'd get through that closing. but I was really pleased with the run anyway. He was fantastic. And now I understand more. I would be a bit more conscious of time and maybe be a bit more strategic in course walking to try and make sure that I knew whether or not, you know, we'd get there in time. But like I said, I was just concentrating on remembering my course, being confident out there, and yeah, understanding the rules basically. So that is snooker. Now we will move on to gamblers. Now this was probably our worst run of the weekend. Again, I'll go through the rules and then I'll say what happened in our course. Not tragic, but like not great either. So again, for gamblers, you just accumulate as many points as you want and then you go for a gamble. Either one of, there's 2 gambles usually, and that earns you extra points. So, course time wise in gamblers, the opening point accumulation period is 30 seconds usually. It was for me anyway, again it might differ. At which time a buzzer sounds and one of the 2 gambles shown on the course may be attempted. So the different heights get different course times to complete the gamble basically, because the different sizes of dog obviously. So handlers must begin by taking the start jump in the correct direction. The start jump has no point value. It's live at all times again like snooker during the run, and if the start jump is taken again at any time during the run, it will be judged as an off-course jump. Point accumulation ends and the handler should go directly to the finish jump to end the game, essentially, and collect the points. Handlers must end by taking the finish jump in the gamble to stop the clock, regardless of whether or not a successful gamble is achieved. If the finish jump is taken in either direction during the opening period or prior to completion of a gamble attempt, the run is over, and no more points may be scored. The finish jump must be taken from the correct side to score gamble points. So handlers going through, under or over any obstacle in a manner that aids performance will result in elimination and 0 points awarded. So that's pretty obvious. Again, there are no refusals judged during the opening period, but refusals do apply in the gamble period and will nullify the ability to earn gamble points. So your gamble has to be clear, basically. Stopwatches or other timing devices are allowed during course walking, but not in the actual competition, again, obviously. And the handler touching the dog or an obstacle, whether intentional or accidental, that aids the dog's performance will result in 0 points being awarded for that obstacle. So that, in a way, is quite similar to snooker. So opening then. So jumps are worth 1 point. Tunnels, wall, long jump, tyre, spread jump, they are worth 2 points. The long jump and spread obviously must be taken in the correct direction. Seesaw is worth 3 points. I didn't do a seesaw. A-frame, 4. Dog walk and 12 weaves, 5. So, you know, you get a gist as to what earns you the most points. And then you can get bonus 5 points if all 4 obstacles numbered 1 to 4 on the course map are completed successfully at any time during the opening period. So they can be taken in any order and do not need to be taken one after the other. You just have to try and include them and you get an extra 5 points, which can really push you up on the results there. So points will also be awarded for the pieces of equipment, and the bonus can only be earned once, but each of the individual obstacles can be scored twice. So you can only do 1 obstacle twice, if that makes sense. You can do more than twice, but you earn no points, so it's time wasting, I think. So the gamble then. So either gamble may be attempted. Oh, and another thing, don't think it says it here, does it? But you can't do like dog walk straight to seesaw or dog walk straight to 12 weave. You have to separate it with a jump or a tunnel, if that makes sense. So the gamble points. Either gamble may be attempted after the buzzer. To earn points, the gamble obstacles must be completed in the order specified, negotiated correctly and completed within the time specified at the beginning of the briefing. So for us, we had 2 gambles. So the first one was worth 10 points and it was shorter. It was obstacles A to D. And then the second gamble was 20 points and that was A to E. So it will be stated on the course map if there's a handler restriction line. So when I went to Oakridge Arena recently to watch the IFCS, the gamble was separated by a line and the handler could not cross the line. So the dog essentially had to work away and go and do the gamble. Luckily that did not happen for me because Arrow is still a little bit sticky at times because he's, well, we know his confidence, but we're working on his independence, but I was quite pleased to see that there was no handler restriction line in this gamble. So again, it depends. So 30-second opening period. So each obstacle, including a gamble obstacle, may be completed successfully for points twice during the opening period. If an obstacle is completed successfully more than twice, no more points are awarded, but no penalty will be incurred unless you are deemed to be loitering. So you don't want to loiter about waiting for the gamble, you need to be actively running around trying to earn points. If an attempt at an obstacle is successful, the judge will call out the number of the obstacle. If it's unsuccessful, the judge will call out no or fault, and the obstacle may be reattempted immediately if the handler still desires, but usually you just carry on. Again, time wasting, isn't it? So for contacts or weaves, no obstacle may be taken twice consecutively, one time immediately followed by another, unless the first attempt was unsuccessful. So this is what I was just talking about. So for example, if a dog does the A-frame successfully and immediately reattempts it, no points will be earned for the second attempt, even if the dog performs the A-frame correctly. The dog must attempt a different obstacle before re-attempting the A-frame for points. An attempt is defined as completing another obstacle or passing through the wings of a jump or frame of the tyre. If a dog misses the contact zone and the judge calls no or zero, then he may immediately re-attempt the obstacle in either direction for points, basically. So no two contact obstacles or a contact and weave may be taken consecutively. This is what I was saying. So a contact may not be followed by another contact, and a weave may not be preceded or followed by a contact. So if the dog takes the dog walk on the A-frame, no points will be earned for the A-frame. Or if the dog takes the weaves, then the seesaw won't earn you any points. So if a dog takes two consecutive gamble obstacles in the same gamble in succession during the opening period, he will receive points for those obstacles, but will be ineligible to earn points for the gamble even if he completes it successfully. So you have to be aware what obstacles are part of the gamble during the opening sequence. For example, if you take A, you cannot take B, but you can take any other gamble obstacle. Or if you take B, you can't take C, but you can take any other. C, you cannot take D, but you can take any other. You get the gist. So if the two gambles have different obstacles, then if the dog takes consecutive obstacles from one gamble in the opening, he may still attempt the other gamble in closing and be awarded the points if he completes it successfully. However, handlers may do the same gamble obstacle twice successfully for points during the opening without negating their opportunity to earn points for a successful gamble. They may also do one obstacle in gamble 1 followed by one obstacle in gamble 2 or vice versa. So just be aware of where the gamble is during your opening period. Jump bars will not be reset during a run, so if a bar is knocked on the first attempt of a jump, the jump will be unavailable for any more points during the opening period. That also applies for the long jump, wall and tyre, so arrow knocked the spread, so there's no point me going back over the spread because it's worth no points after that. If a gamble obstacle is attempted during the opening period and a bar is knocked, it will not be replaced, so no gamble using that obstacle will actually be awarded, so that's the risk. The handler should continue to accumulate points on the course until the buzzer sounds to end the opening period, and then they should attempt the other gamble if it's still available, or go to the finish as quickly as possible. There will be no penalty if the dog takes additional obstacles and en route to the finish jump. Same as snooker, however in snooker, say if the dog knocks a red jump, if it takes another obstacle on the way to the next red jump, that's game over. So it matters in the opening period in snooker, but it doesn't matter in the opening period in gamblers, but it does matter in the closing and in the gamble, if that makes sense. So you can think of these games as like two parts, if that makes sense, with different rules. So if a dog is performing an obstacle when the buzzer sounds to end the opening period, points will be awarded if the obstacle's been completed. So again, like I said in snooker, to the point where the dog can no longer get faulted on it. So when the whistle blows or the horn sounds to signify the end of the opening period, if a dog is in the process of negotiating an obstacle, which is also number 1 in the gamble, but has not completed it, they will not score points for the opening section. In addition, because the obstacle has been started before the whistle or horn sounds, it must be repeated if the handler wants to attempt that gamble. So once the whistle has blown or the horn has sounded, taking another obstacle on the way to the gamble is not faulted and just time wasting. Once the judge deems the gamble sequence is started, they can fault. For example, if the dog refuses gamble obstacle 1 and then takes another obstacle, that'll be game over. If the judge deems the handler is loitering and waiting for the gamble horn to sound and not actively attempting to do more obstacles, the judge will blow a whistle and the handler should go as quickly as possible to the finish jump and no gamble points will be awarded. So do not hang around, don't hold contact, stuff like that. So to finish us off then, there will be no penalty if a dog takes any obstacle on the way to the start of the gamble, but once the judge deems that the dog is on approach to the first gamble obstacle, the gamble begins and refusals, off courses and other faults will be judged according to the rules. So again, it's at judge's discretion pretty much. And once the first gamble obstacle is attempted, taking any other obstacle outside of the numbered gamble sequence will end the attempt. The judge will blow a whistle and the handler should go to the finish. Any faults on any obstacles during the gamble attempt will result in no gamble points being awarded. As soon as a fault happens and the judge blows a whistle, the handler should stop the gamble attempt and go to the finish jump. There will be no penalty if the dog takes additional obstacles en route, as I've already said. So again, the whistle is if a fault happens and it means go to the finish. The buzzer during the opening means you're out of time for the opening and you need to start the gamble. A handler restriction may be in place, but again, clarified on the course map. If this is the case, the handler may not step across or step on the handler restriction line marked on the ground until the dog has successfully taken the finish jump. The handler may lean over the line and extend their arm over the line, but they just can't step on or over it, basically. I think usually there's another person as well as the judge looking down the line, making sure this is the case. Luckily, that wasn't for me. And the dog will not be awarded the gamble points if any of the following situations occur. The dog fails to complete the gamble within the time or incurs faults during the gamble. The gamble obstacle is knocked in such a way as to alter it from its original state during the opening period. The handler violates the no loitering rule. The handlers must be actively attempting obstacles to earn points until the moment the horn sounds to end the opening period. If a handler stops on a contact, repeats an obstacle that has already been completed twice successfully, or otherwise significantly hesitates waiting for the horn, they will be called for loitering and cannot earn gamble points. Or if the dog takes 2 consecutive gamble obstacles in the same gamble in succession, one after the other, during the opening period. Or the dog performs the finish jump in either direction during the opening period or prior to the completion of a gamble attempt. And finally, the handler steps on or over the line if the distance restriction is in place. So those are the gambler rules. In my gambler run, it was all going so well until he got to the spread. This was part of the 5 bonus points and he knocked that. So I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, he then ran past the long jump, which was weird. So again, instead of trying to reattempt it because he'd already knocked the spread, the long jump was also part of this little bonus sequence. So I thought, well, he can't get the bonus sequence anyway. On its own, the long jump isn't worth a lot of points. So I just carried on straight to the tunnel afterwards. And then the rest of it was fine. And then once the buzzer sounded, I was actually right there for the gamble with less points. So I just put him straight into that. And then the weave entry was miles away. And he went in the second. So I had to go straight to the finish. And then he couldn't find the finish. He was looking at it like, where? And I ended up having to send him round it. But I was lucky that he didn't go over it the wrong way. Because I would have got eliminated. So it could have gone worse. But I think my head was all over the place. His head was all over the place. But my course was dog walk, a few jumps, weaves. And then I did the A-frame twice. Because it's so fast over it. It's worth quite a few points. And he's really consistent at it. You know, he doesn't miss it, touch wood. So I thought that was quite safe. And then again, next time I would probably be more sort of thinking about what I'm doing as far as timing goes in the course walking. You know, using course times, dog meters per second, stopwatches, you know, stepping out the meters with my feet, stuff like that. But again, my main focus for this weekend was just understanding the rules and getting my course in my head. Also, there's no point really watching anyone else up until the gamble because everyone's courses are different. But it is quite handy to watch dogs that are a similar speed to your dog so that you can kind of gauge whereabouts they get when the buzzer sounds, if that makes sense. So it's still handy, but you just got to be careful not to pick up the wrong course. But yeah, that is pretty much everything for games rules. Anyway, again, they do differ a little bit depending on the day, depending on the course, depending on the judge. But obviously this was for my briefing and the rules in general. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I'm very happy with my snooker run, to be fair. Gamblers wasn't terrible. He did some nice work. Again, there was no win on for WA for games at this event. So it was, like they said, they were just looking for understanding of the rules. And I think I did show that, hopefully. I reacted to the buzzers, to everything in that sense. And adhered to all the rules. But gamblers is a mind, like, it just does your mind in. Because you have to be actively listening out for the buzzer while running your dog. So I almost felt like I wasn't all in to the run with him because I was listening out for the buzzer. But again, it's just something to get used to, and I will, try and look for I know you can get games workshops, games training days, stuff like that as well. So I will look out for those and do some with him. And I'm going to do CSJ Open next year, which is in June for the first time, which is exciting because that's run very much similar to WO. WO is definitely something one of my goals now with him, getting on Team England. But yeah, it was great to have that first experience and kind of know more what it's all about now. But yeah, that is the end of the episode. If you still have any more questions, please do send me a message. Follow me on all of the socials. I'll put them here on the YouTube video and down below in the description on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to leave a review of the podcast, hopefully 5 stars, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That would mean the world to me. Use my Huel link again for cool discounts and free gifts. The ad was at the start of the podcast, so skip back to that. I'll also put it in the description. And make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And talking of future episodes, make sure to join me again this time next Wednesday at 8 p.m. for yet another episode. I should have a very exciting guest next week, fingers crossed. And I will see you all then. Bye guys.